Have you ever been on a plane where everything felt perfectly normal, until the sky itself reminded you that one of your fellow passengers was far more than they appeared to be? This isn't a story about a celebrity or a headline maker. It's about a girl in seat 7A, just a kid to everyone around her, who was quietly traveling like any other passenger. Nobody knew her name. Nobody knew her past. And then, high above the clouds, an F-35A broke formation, locked on her plane, and called out her call sign. Stay with me until the end, because what unfolded next left every passenger stunned, and it will change the way you look at ordinary people forever. And before we begin, make sure you subscribe, because we bring you stories that keep you hooked until the very last second. The flight from Dallas to Seattle was half full that afternoon. Passengers shuffled through boarding in their usual mix of hurry and fatigue. Seat 7A by the window belonged to a girl no older than 15. She wore an oversized hoodie, headphones, and the tired look of a teenager who had seen too much for her age. Nobody paid attention. To the flight attendants, she was just another minor traveling alone. To the businessman in 7B, she was just a quiet kid he didn't need to talk to. But while everyone else around her checked emails, ordered drinks, or drifted into naps, she sat unusually still. Her eyes scanned the sky outside even before takeoff, like someone who understood what to look for. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't excited. She was waiting. 2 hours into the flight, turbulence hit. The captain's calm voice reassured passengers, but his tone carried a strange tension. Moments later, shadows streaked across the windows, sleek, sharp, unmistakably military. 2 F-35As appeared, flying tight alongside the commercial jet. Gasps echoed through the cabin. Children pressed faces against glass. Adults muttered in confusion. Why were fighter jets here? The businessman in 7B leaned toward the girl. Strange, huh? You don't see that every day. But she didn't answer. Her eyes had narrowed, focused like a hawk. She knew. In the cockpit, the captain spoke urgently into his headset. This is Flight 209, requesting clarification. Why do we have F-35 escort? Static crackled, then a firm voice responded. Flight 209, hold course. We are confirming passenger manifest. Passengers shifted uneasily as whispers spread. Is there a threat? A hijacker? Fear gripped the cabin. Flight attendants did their best to soothe, but even they couldn't hide their unease. And then it happened. The F-35A on the left wing tilted, broadcasting a radio message. Not to the captain, not to the co-pilot, but through a channel that spilled into the cabin speakers. Seat 7A, the voice said clearly. This is Talon Leader. We see you, Ghost Hawk. Do you copy? The cabin fell silent. Dozens of heads turned toward Seat 7A, toward the kid. Her headphones slipped off as she froze. She hadn't heard that name in years. Ghost Hawk. The call sign from a life she had been forced to leave behind. Her hands clenched the armrest, her heart pounding. The businessman stammered. Wait, they're talking to you? She stood slowly, the air around her charged with something unexplainable. A flight attendant whispered, Sweetheart, sit down. It's okay, but stopped when she saw the girl's expression. Calm. Controlled. Too controlled for a child. The captain's voice cut through. Passenger 7A, please step forward to the cockpit. The aisle parted as passengers stared. Some muttered in disbelief. A child? Call sign. What was happening? She walked steadily, every step echoing like a secret being revealed. When she entered the cockpit, the pilots looked as bewildered as the passengers. Who are you? The captain asked. She looked out the windshield at the F-35s flanking them. Then she answered softly. I was Ghost Hawk. Shadow Squadron, Black Ops program. Classified missions. I was retired. The co-pilot blinked. Retired? You're a kid. Her jaw tightened. Not when they recruited me. The story unraveled in pieces. Years earlier, she had been part of an experimental program, training young prodigies in advanced drone and fighter simulations, building instincts far beyond seasoned pilots. Ghost Hawk had been the standout, guiding real missions remotely, even assisting in mid-air combat strategies. But after one mission went wrong, classified, sealed, buried, she disappeared from official records. Her guardians moved her into civilian life, changing her name, her story, everything. To the world, she was a kid. To the Air Force, she was a ghost. And now, the F-35s had found her. Ghost Hawk, the radio called again. Command requests your immediate verification. Her hands shook as she reached for the headset. This is Ghost Hawk, she said quietly. Seat 7A. Confirming. Silence. Then the reply came. Not from the pilot, but from the highest level. Welcome back. Passengers leaned toward the cockpit, straining to listen, though most only caught fragments. They saw her silhouette against the windshield, headset on, posture steady like she had done this 100 times before. The captain exchanged glances with the co-pilot, realizing this kid wasn't just a passenger. She was the reason fighter jets were here. The businessman in 7B muttered to no one, she's one of them. The rest of the flight was tense. The F-35s never left their side. Passengers whispered theories. Was she a runaway agent? A spy? A hero? Some feared her. Others admired her. But she ignored them all, staring out at the jets as memories clawed their way back. Missions, losses, choices no child should have been forced to make. The girl in seat 7A had been invisible until the sky refused to let her remain hidden. When the plane finally landed, the tarmac wasn't like any other. Military vehicles waited. Uniformed officers stood at attention. Passengers pressed against windows, stunned as they realized this wasn't a routine arrival. As the doors opened, officials entered, not for arrests, not for threats, but for her. They saluted. The kid, in the hoodie, clutching her backpack, received a salute from men twice her age, warriors who knew her name before they ever saw her face. She whispered to herself, I never wanted to come back. But fate had called her anyway. And as she walked down the aisle, every passenger in that plane understood, seat 7A had never belonged to a child. It had belonged to Ghost Hawk, the legend the sky itself had remembered. And that, my friends, is the story of how a girl thought to be just another passenger was revealed to be one of the Air Force's forgotten prodigies. Sometimes heroes don't age like we expect. Sometimes they carry secrets too heavy for ordinary lives. And sometimes, the sky itself refuses to let them stay hidden. If this story gave you chills, don't forget to subscribe, because we bring you more stories like this, stories that remind us that legends could be sitting right next to you, disguised as ordinary people.